Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm your host, Stephen Topham at the third, at your service. Now, you're probably wondering what I'm going to be discussing with you today. Now, a lot of you may be understanding what's he going to talk about this time. Right, besides the K2 cover up, which I exposed in the last podcast, that is definitely true, right to the core. Right, but we're going to be talking about many topics today, but I'm going to stick between two or three. All right. I know a lot of you are feeling like, what do we gain with the Norfolk Railway, but acknowledging something else, right? The Norfolk Railway will ever be there, but you've got to treat it right like an equal. So when you equal something, right, there is a balance with everything, right? A lot of people will say, this is what we give you. If you don't like it, leave the door, right? That's what normally the porters and the guards and the management will always say, right? Ignore that because it's a way of making you feel uneasy. And you don't want to feel uneasy, right? I want to bring up something also on top because I want this podcast to be very special. But at the same time, with all this negativity at the Norfolk Railway, we're not going to get the banks correct. So what I'm going to do is split it into two topics, right? First of all, let's talk about sometimes when we touch, right? A lot of people will say, why is he calling that title? Well, I have a private connection who I won't name, right? Who I've known for since 2015, 16, 17, 18, and going on, right? And a lot of people said, right, today is his last day at being in the best coffee shop in Sheringham, right? Everybody adores him, we all respect him, and best for the future to a very high degree. But he's not the only one that's leaving me, right? Because he's my private connection. And regardless that he's also a magician and an artist, if you would like to call it correctly, he's going back to that direction, right? So I wanted to point that out. I know a lot of you in Sheringham know him really well, as much as I have, and regardless, that pains me because I said I trust this individual for so long. It feels like it's nearly 10 years already, right? I acknowledged that I've seen him and start showing my face in the door in 2015, 16, something like that, and acknowledged that since I've been in this coffee shop that I go to every morning, having the best cup of tea in the world with my toast now these days. I became his favourite regular, even the longest running customer in the whole time. But I wish him the best of luck for the future and acknowledge that sometimes when we touch, good things always come forward. Right? So to his colleagues and himself, we wish them all the best for the future. And I want that personally to come from my own mouth because I want to acknowledge it. Right? Now, the second topic, right, is very, very clear. Right? and I want you to understand what I'm acknowledging to everybody out there. A lot of you will probably coordinate with this a lot quicker than I would, but I am on top form, right? So when I say sometimes when we touch, a lot of our feelings, our protocols, how we feel in our heart, soul, and mind, and our heart that go with it, obviously. The benefit of the doubt is that when we touch, we all say, sometimes when we touch, it goes forward with us, right? It becomes a memory in time, a memory of going forward, right? We also have to acknowledge that no one's to blame here. This is why I said when I acknowledge to you a lot of the truth that comes out effectively helps you out as a customer, a friend, a colleague, a connection, or a family member, right? I want you to know I'm there for everybody, not just for one person, might I add. But the way the things are unfolding slowly, I'm getting my face back into the social life, as well as my love life, which remains private. But I want people to understand there's more to me in the end of the day than what people think that, oh, it's acknowledging what can be done, right? You really have to put yourself in my shoes. Sometimes you have to put yourself in my shoes sometimes and realize what I do for the community and the world and everything on top. I'm trying to please everybody that needs something than what they got. But sometimes when we touch, if it's a friend or a connection or a family member, it's already three pieces, so work it out. It connects, right? But I want you to realize there is more than what it sounds, but it gives out the right memo and message throughout the grid. So when people ask about certain engines on the internet like Discord or something like that, something really, really basic, right? We all acknowledge that there are people that know a lot. Yes, we probably know that. But it's what unfolds here in in sharing them that acknowledges to the public that I am around for a reason. A lot of people think if I really have strong feelings for this particular song, especially when it's sometimes when we touch by Dean Hill or by Private Connection or Stella Black, for example. Ding 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 ding. Right, sometimes when we touch, honesty is too much. You get the drill how the song goes, and it really has a meaning, right? Meanings are very powerful than what you are jumping in the gun with and say, look, okay, oh, I didn't realize they had meaning. Well, they do, alright? It's reality, right? Now, I want the community to realize I know a lot of people that don't often really think on their toes and realize what this is what's happening, this is what's going, this is what's achieved, and acknowledge, right? When a lot of things a lot unfold gently, they do carefully unfold. I want people to know that sometimes when we touch family, friends, or connections, we always have the acknowledgement to understand that we are trying to clear out the bad air, bring in the good air, right? But it takes a little while or time, which we have a lot of, right? But we need to speed up a little bit, if you will. So when I acknowledge the proof is in the pudding, the K2 is on the North Norfolk Railway in secrecy, right? The management will not do anything until they acknowledge that, until it shows it really acknowledges in their heads and realize how did he know that? How does he know that? A lot of engines around the globe, it doesn't matter if it's on the North Norfolk Railway or or the Bluebell Railway line or the Telly Lynn line. The Telly Lynn is not touchable, so I can't go through that department. But any standard gauge line in the whole of the United Kingdom has all of these steam trains and acknowledge that we that they can be converted into another set of engines. Right? It's not always about money. This is why always people get annoyed because it's all about money for them. For the customer, for the community, or even for myself, I acknowledge people's needs more than wants. So if I know I can able for you to have what you need, we give. Right? I have really put myself really on the line for this to acknowledge and establish that you need what has been given, right? I want you to understand Thomas and Friends is reality, right? As the series goes, everybody understands it quite clearly, right? Because there's 8 billion people that know it, right? But mostly the UK does and the United Kingdom does, right? 10,000 of you were shocked, drop jawed, right? Didn't put the pieces together until my private connection in America is stated this is this, this is this, this is this, right? So sometimes when we touch, we try, we are being honest with the community and establish where you all stand in all of this. We all play a part in everything, right? It's not just about my family. My family has been the best family you can look up to, but did not realise why is 24 on the line. Ask yourself a question. Is something in the is something that the North Norfolk Railway didn't foresee and did not acknowledge, right? Let's take it from another angle to give you a big heads up, right? Let's take Star Wars, right? And Star Trek. I'm going to put those two as two separate programs, right? One is a movie, one is a TV show and movie. So we're going to acknowledge first Star Wars. Why did what a Jedi Master, as example, acknowledges that the kid that had stronger force in the Jedi Force, right? Which was Anakin Skywalker, right? We got to acknowledge that, right? when he came back in episode 9, right, I know there's a lot of fan made material on YouTube that makes sense and says, right, did Qui-Gon Jinn say to everybody in the Jedi Council, he is the chosen one? His right. I'm not going to go into details with Star Wars movies because this is not about Star Wars movies in general, but I'm giving you a better understanding of concept of it. Right. So when he grew up and became the Jedi Master that everybody thought he would look up to, and have a wife, and it ended up turning to be on the dark side of the Force, but without with acknowledgement that he's got his two kids, right? Luke and Leia, right? Which is true, right? That was the New Hope, right? The New Hope continued right up to episode 9, right? Episode 6 established that Anakin Skywalker comes back into the Return of the Jedi. Why? Because it's based on him that he acknowledged that the dark side of the Force became light again. Right? So then he became the Darth Vader, but the good side of Anakin Skywalker. So then he got rid of the Sith. He thought he got rid of the Sith, but the Sith came back in episode 9. Right? So realistically, the rise of the Skywalker was acknowledging to you that Anakin came back as example to say, I am the chosen one. And that's the truth, because he acknowledged that he was part of the Jedi team before he became the dark side of the Sith. So I'm trying to break it down as much as I can right now. Right? So that's the breakdown of all of those movies all in one. That's a bit of a mouthful. Right, okay? We also have to acknowledge sometimes when we touch, acknowledges that a lot of things that have been said in Star Trek is enormously to the highest degree, right? And we've got to also have to acknowledge that what they say in that, right? Let's take it for another example, just to give you a heads up why I'm going through all of these in all of this in categories, right? To acknowledge that Star Trek, why Star Trek got so much to do, right? A lot of people said, right, even for a very short period of time with Star Trek, The Next Generation, DS9, and Voyager, they were telling you exactly what you need to know, right? Right? There was a lot of problems in the category and all of that, right? And I said Picard was giving it to you on a silver platter, right? Picard, as a series, told you exactly that he was the Admiral, he was a legend, and he was also a, basically a legend that comes back to finish off a job that he once started. Right? A lot of people say there's a lot of connections, there's a lot of people involved, and then everybody feels like, why is North Norfolk Railway not realising they've got their fat controller 5 minutes down the road, and they don't acknowledge that they actually. I'll be honest with you, I really don't want to say this out loud, but I want you to know that the North Norfolk Railway respect me, but they don't, because they're acknowledging that the truth is eventually setting them free, or setting them out to realise, I'm here, don't bullshit. Right? When a lot of things have been said in a lot of ways and one that you can't imagine. Right? I have friends in high places and connections in high places, right? And I have to broadly connect that and realize I have feelings as well. And the feelings that go through my mind is not for the the people that come and visit me or people that ask questions that they want answers for, and they're not going to get it all on a silver platter, right? Because a lot of information that's stored in my mind is normally privatized to a certain level. But I don't want people to feel disappointed that certain things have been taken away from them or understand what is going on, how it unfolds. Right? When people say, right, earning one's respect is hardest part of the whole thing, but it's a full circle of life, right? When people look down and realize that I got something I can offer the the, the North Norfolk Railway back now because I've got it all in. It's all set in motion. So everybody's happy. But I got friends, connections, and colleagues and so forth that acknowledge that and realize there's some milk about me that you will like say sometimes when we touch, ending up that descendants on the next one down the line. So is my son, Richard Topham Hatt, the third, fourth, and acknowledging my granddaughter who's a fifth. So so when you work it out, that's the way it should play out. So acknowledge that because it could happen and it will happen and I will not fail. It's a lot of what you see is what you get, right? And I want people to feel like, why is this got to do with the railway? The railway is a big key, right? Let me give you an example of timelines that could go really, really down the line, alright? How many of you are actually afraid of the North Norfolk Railway as a whole, without me being there? How many of you are actually afraid of going on there because they don't treat people with respect? Right? They open day and night. They do the railway day in through the day, and then finish off at 5 o'clock in the evening, and don't even realise what they see is what they get. Right? They can't work out why do they not come to you? It's because the North Norfolk Railway booted out someone that the community needs, right? And the community's needs are more important. And when you break it down and break it even more down, you've got that pattern in play and you say, what? Uh, you know what I mean? It's like that because it's on black and white paper, right? I cleared nearly most of my name. The only problem is it's just waiting for that access to tell you be patient, keep away from the premises. People that go on that premises now are mostly global people. People that are interested in that railway and thought, oh, I like this railway, blah blah blah. But it's not about the money. It's the money, respect, and honesty. In this case, if I was up there in my office, I would say, look, if you want, I will give you the respect that people need because I want you to. I'm gonna acknowledge to you. I know things that are going to happen before it happens. So, if you feel like the trusting part of me will always be trustworthy, but it's acknowledging the fact there are more to me than the naked eye. So, sometimes when we touch, it's not just a song, it's a meaning as well. So, when you acknowledge from right from wrong, you need to realize if they left it so long, let's just say 5 years as example, right? From 2019, we are in 2024, right? I got a private connection that's watching you, and I want you to be acknowledged on that because I don't want you to be cut loose. I'm not going to give out the private connection's name, but it's really what I stand for. It's what I represent. The 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 Hatt family are no ordinary individuals, right? We come back to sort people's problems out. We sort the company's problems or the railway's issues always because we put ourselves in everybody's shoes because we have to make sure everybody gets what they need, right? Let me tell you an example what could happen if you screw up, right? I think that sometimes when we touch may lead to this problem, right? Let me put this in perspective, right? My family will come into play like it should, and you're gonna start realizing, holy crap, he knows a lot more. Okay, let me take this example, right? My granddaughter comes into power, right? Don't give her the disrespect like you did me. Regardless, I'll be maybe gone by then. My son will be on your tail. And it's not a joke, it's a warning, and I'm warning you. My son will safeguard her, right? I may know about my granddaughter, but you are going to learn the hard way, right? The North Norfolk Railway will end up having a new manager, right? And regardless that the management is going to lose against me right now because they are failing to uphold and respect not just my family but the whole full whack. But it's not what I'm trying to acknowledge to you in one perspective, right? The first generation, my grandfather, Sir Topham Hatt the first, and then you got my father, Charles Topham Hatt the second, and then you got myself, third. Then you got senior as the beginning, right? So what happens if I find out that any of my family get disrespected on that railway company, right? It won't be me that won't be doing the work, right? Because I'll maybe knowing the truth and the future ahead of me. My son Richard is the next in line, right? He will come up, or he will go up there at the railway. You're not gonna ban him, because if you ban him, I'm really gonna be advertising on you lot. It's not a joke, it's reality. So this is what could happen if you don't play by the rules. So Richard Topham Hatt is the next one in line. Then it'd be Emily Helen Hatt, the fifth one on the line, right? And she'd be the first female Fat controller on the line and that will be the main course. And you will end up, people then will gain respect, right? By then, right, the actual thought of going forward on this is acknowledging you to that there's two more of the generations of the Hats after me. But you got my son and you got my granddaughter, right? Right? First of all, gotta clear my name first before I could go forward. And I acknowledge that in Duck's story, right? And I put the pieces together and add it in and equals it in, right? The North Norfolk Railway at this moment is in very tight squeeze. And when it comes to all this money business, which is why they all go down a bit, right? All they care about is money, 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 money. It's not like ABBA where you say, money, 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 can't be funny in a rich man's world. Right? The first thing that comes to your eyes when you hear that song, right? The North Norfolk Railway will not always give you that full time respect. I'm gonna be honest with you on that one and acknowledge that the North Norfolk Railway are too pricey, the respect is gone, and the only thing that's holding it together right now is the engines. Right? When you when people wake up in the morning and steal the engines and making you couple up, then the customers starting to come in and pay their prices. Right? I'm gonna be holding all the information saying, oh, it's a rip-off, for example, or something like that, right? And they make a description and acknowledge that I want to take responsibility here. This is not like a game. This is a real life event. And what happens? You, the North Norfolk Railway will not ever, ever treat people with respect because what the main majority that Sir Topham Hatt the first and myself basically got a similar storyline. And when you realise there is something wrong about this place, or it's not right, or in the atmosphere, or the people's attitudes, and everything else, it all coordinates to say sometimes when we touch, we're not always going to get the positive side all the time. It's the boundary that they have and I have. I said I don't want to be disrespected, right? So when people look at it properly and realize, ding ding, it will click. You have a K2 on the line ready to be modified. You just got to modify that J15 or the Y14 and acknowledge that you've got that engine K2 already on the line, right? Of course. Let's talk about events, right? We all love our events, and I know you like your dad's army, you like all the rest, and the wine and dine job and fish and chip job and all that. Just acknowledge that as like those events are not going to be saving your backside, saving everybody's position here. The North Norfolk Railway has to acknowledge that to turn into what it is and acknowledge what it is. Why? How long have you had those events running? Right? That's excluding the day out of Thomas. That that's been safeguarded for obvious reasons. But throughout the grid of the United Kingdom, as well as the North Norfolk Railway, how many of the other heritage railways that are doing what the North Norfolk Railway are not doing? And acknowledge that they are in the wrong. Yes, they are in the wrong. But exactly why? 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 People know this too well to realise we understand where you're coming from. We know the logic. We know the respect of this. And we've got to make sure, bang. What's the first thing in your head besides money, which is it always down to? It's not always about money here. It's acknowledging about the people that work on there and acknowledge the customers are a separate entity. We can't always have what you want. You know what I mean? It's people's needs. Now, if I said money is always the key element for you guys, if you're gonna run it, people, what you're doing is you asking people to pay a lot of money for a 5 mile trip. Get realistic. Get your head out of your clouds and realize what is realistic. Let's just say, oh, I want to go from Sheringham to Rayborn, as example, right? Instead of being an adult price and a child price, right, or a family price, whatever, right? You do it as a set price, right? Because it could be one person, one person would have cost you a fiver, right? To £2.50, £3.50, something like that, right? You're talking about from Sheringham to Weybourne on its own would have cost you nearly £3.50, right? In return, that's £7, right? If you're doing it from Holt all the way to Sheringham, right? You have to acknowledge that if you're going to do a full trip, including the Weybourne pit stop job, then it's worth as £12.50 or 15 quid, right? You have to look at the realistic way of thinking there. You got Kelling Heath on top of that, but that's only one stop. But the actual outcome of these prices that you are producing, that I will not bullshit, right? I want people to realize it's not about what you see, it's what you're getting for the value of money. Because in the day when you add all these prices up, combined with the food and water that you buy in the buffet shop area or the luggage area, you want to know exactly how much does a cup of tea cost normally for a normal cup of tea shop. In a tea shop, it would be a lot cheaper, right? Because you may ask for a pot of tea or a glass of tea or a mug of tea or whatever, and then you've got to realize that price is really cheap, that's reasonable, we're not getting anywhere, we're not doing much. And then you take that price and take it to the North Norfolk Railway. How much do you think, before you can add the food, right, the drinks are very reasonable to a point, but then you got to work out the platform ticket? No, 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 no. We give them one ticket to go onto the platform and the train itself. Because in the day, it's like saying you need to start realizing sometimes when we touch, we understand the value of money. The value of money is not the, it's a big key in all of this, right? So when you got steam trains running from left It's only a 5 mile trip, my ad, so you need to work it in your mind and realize there is more logic to this, right? You've got so much in your mind right now. You really need to put the proof is in the pudding, and it's acknowledging that proof in the pudding is what really puts you in the position to say what is the best way to get a train ticket from Sheringham to Weybourne or Sheringham to Holt or Weybourne to Holt, vice versa, 2 or 2, plus that you got Kellingheath on top. And then you got to realise, okay, it's a distance, it's the travel, it's the money, it's then you got to work out how far are you going, are you travelling from whatever. If you were doing this on the on the on a big scale, I said the proof is in the pudding. And I try to acknowledge that, and I'm trying to break it all down for you right now to acknowledge that I'm seeing people's faces so depressed because they're not very happy with the service they are given. I don't need their body language tells me all of it. Right? I acknowledge that you want cheaper fares to go to A to B or C. Right? In the day, a friend told me, said, or quotably, I've got private connections everywhere, acknowledge that it's not about what we get. It's very important, yes, for the customer's point of view. For the North Norfolk Railway, it's always about the money factor. The money factor will make them lose because they end up losing more than gaining what the customers needs are. So you need to really, really prioritize this and make sure you realize from a business point of view, you have to. It's like the North Norfolk Railway has got to block all of it what they got in their bucket, right? I talk about buckets because obviously there's simple reasons for these two buckets. Mine is completely empty. Theirs is completely full. What's their bloody problem? Excuse my French. What's their problem that made that problem so bloody big that they left it all in a pile because they left it under the rug? Right? Every problem they have, they sweep it under the carpet. This is all the money, this is all what is built up behind their backs. So the reputation that we gave them in the first place before 2016 and 19 and so forth, people's reputations were were disrespected, right? Disrespected. I apologise for that, but there you go. So when you look in the mirror and realise what is at stake, can you ask yourself the very big question that can solve this problem, right? You have done nothing wrong, the community hasn't. The previous staff didn't do nothing wrong because they kept the prices at the very as low as they can very go, right? By 2016, things start to alter. Things you probably don't approve, right? Like I stated, it's all in Duck's story, so the Duck story will unfold mostly everything you want to know. Just listen to it over and over again and get it in your mind and get it realistic because that's been unfolded already and it's been corrected near enough. When you look at the North Norfolk Railway today, you're not seeing the full potential of what they could have done and left what they could have done, right? I remember right, the way they altered so much that could that it doesn't feel like you are that you change a bit, which you could do. Yes, you can move forward, but then you got to get realistic at the same time and realize and acknowledge that my son Richard Topham Hatt, and then you got Emily Helen Hatt, the last one of the all. So work it out, like my son and my granddaughter. So work it out forward like it would do, right? And you're ending up with one thing. I in the day when people moan or complain, people that are on that way they don't have the experience to gain certain knowledge, certain potential, right? People have strengths and weaknesses which I have to put in consideration. But the reality factor is when we touch, it acknowledges what needs to be done or be correct. It's not about the value of money. This is the money factor that's making it's saying from good reputation to bad reputation. Right? I did not do nothing wrong. I'm innocent. It's like innocent throughout. Right? The acknowledgement is to make you want you. I'm giving you a chance to realize you're doing a 5 mile trip, right? And acknowledge that you're paying too much for where you're going, right? A lot of people will say, "Oh, this is what costs that, and that." They will make a lame excuse all the time. But every generation, right, the first, the second, and myself, are all trying to accommodate your needs more than your wants. So we acknowledge that the prices of the Norfolk Railway need to drop, extremely drop, because they're not realizing that what they're catching out on, right? It's not the electric, it's not the water. That's a separate entity from the railway itself. The railway will always be there. It's just acknowledging when you put it as a circle, right? A circle that goes round and round and round, and it makes you wonder where does the railway fit, put its footing in? They lost that respect, right? So when you think somebody that's coming out with the right knowledge that you want to hear, you have to realize there's more to it than what it's unfolded. So when it's unfolded, it makes sense. But you have to acknowledge where they gone wrong, right? It's gone from respect to disrespect. So it's not just the community, it was the previous generation, the staff, obviously. The management don't give a damn, excuse my French, and acknowledge that they are in the wrong regardless of what they're doing. They will not acknowledge because they're too young. They're a bunch of amateurs to actually realize, okay, he may be right. You know, look at the mileage, then the money, then the factor, right? When you compare rail prices most of the time, we don't often look into this very deeply, right? So we need to start prioritizing and acknowledge that where they're gonna think in their minds, where did they go wrong, or where did we go wrong, quotably, by the Norfolk Railway, right? They just had somebody, right? Right, I'm gonna be honest with you, had a documentary that came out so long, just recently, and everybody was pissed off. Excuse my language, or disappointed, right? But that's a need. That's a want. That's not a need. What you need to do, get out of that situation. You got Dad's Army event. You got all of these events, right? And you're missing one. One out of the whole, right? Every day, I'm going to be correct to all your problems step by step. It's not going to be over time, but sometimes when we talk, we'll be able to deal with this problem together. But you're not helping the situation because you basically what you the whole management itself don't know what they got until they lose it, right? Even the customers know this. Even the whole community knows this. I would not BS about this problem, right? I tried to be honest with the community. The community has a bigger say in this, but so do I. So do the previous generation, right? And I acknowledged and I overheard a lot of things, right? I'm not going to go into details because it's private details in general. But then you've got to think about, okay, if you can't get to this, already diverted you lot to go to somewhere else or diverted a way you could get your price cheaper and acknowledge that the North Norfolk Railway is still a valuable asset, but they're not seeing the big picture. It's like I said, it's all about money with them. They always think about money, and that's the end of the story. It's just them being so. It's not the porters, it's not the guards, it's the administration team. And they're not acknowledging what they see is what they're getting and whatever next. And they're getting confused because they don't know what the hell is going on. They're not thinking straight because they're not realizing what the hell. It's not always what is in front of you, it's acknowledging everything around you. And this is why people start to notice things, pick up on things. I don't have to do all the saying all the time or acknowledge what needs to be fixed. I know what needs to be fixed, but I'm not there at the moment. So if you look forward instead of back, you've got the proof in the pudding, obviously. The proof is in the pudding. It's really what I'm trying to nail all on to. But when you think that what what is a Norfolk Railway offering you in the prime art of acknowledging it to realise what is wrong here. You know, you as a communityist and a customerist, even that both parts become one. Are you really wanting to be benefiting with the prices issue? I said the prices is what they set it, right? It's not your fault. Acknowledge that you got a five. So when you go on that, you got to realize it's a 5 mile journey, right? There's a lot more to it than what it looks, all right? So when we acknowledge everything that's unfolded, I know I bubble on a bit, but it really makes you click, click, click. I want you to use your thinking brain on this because it's a lot more problem over there than you think. And I'm catching them out every time. There is a thing that they don't see and they're not acknowledging that we have a 5-year-old problem as example near enough, or a 4-year-old problem or a 3-year problem, and acknowledge they screwed up. The community gets a panic attack over this, and then all the previous generation and now can't come back because they're too, you know, old, or they not don't want to come back anymore because of the disrespect. This, if if anything can't be resolved in time, problems will reoccur. So you know what's supposed to happen. You got Richard Topham Hatt that's next on the line, who's my son, and then you've got Emily Helen Hatt, which is my granddaughter. Ding, ding, ding. Right? You just gotta wait now because you got me, but now why does he need to come back? It's like people asking why you need to come back to the Norfolk Railway. Fact. There's a truth there that I'm telling you. Why do I need to come back to the Norfolk Railway? To get things sorted. There's a straight line what a lot of people can't see, right? There's a lot of things that the Norfolk Railway can't see, right? And they just think it's a normal day for them every day, doing the chores, doing the engines, doing the diesel work, diesel DMUs and all of that, and they ending up with nothing at the end. It's not about, do you, when people go on that platform, do you see them being partly happy, partly sad, partly cross, or when they get off the platform, they feel like, oh, part of them will say, yeah, oh, it's a lovely day, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a part of the community that's going to say it's a rip-off because it's something in the money factor. So if you can't fix the money factor, the money will end up biting at you because then you've got to work out the strategy or a movement to go forward to realize sometimes when we touch or not acknowledging what is in front, acknowledge that the community wants something, but they want it in the better value. They don't want it to be. It's like going back in time and resetting it a bit, if you know what I mean. So when you look at the prices, the administration and the volunteers and the staff, are they going to be happy with all the prices all the time? The answers will be no, because the answer's been thrown back at you and said, look, oh, I don't please, oh, I can understand where he's coming from. I can see the logic in that, and I can see the respect on that. But the thing is, you have to realize from right from wrong. If I acknowledge that there's a proof in the pudding, because I know there's a lot of proof, the proof is in the pudding with me. So when you get the truth out of my mouth, I want to be honest with a community that be willing to hear me out, see it for themselves, and realize what they're getting is not always what they say. When they put it in leaflet, they said, oh, we got this and we got that. I don't like people getting disappointed. So when you look at yourself, just ask a lot of people. People are afraid of the Norfolk Rovers. It's not redemption, it's the actual understanding. And that's why it backfired on everybody else. So think about all the volunteers and staff that were there in 2019 and they got being rude at, selfish at, and everything else. They are the main people that respected you, not just me alone. So when I came out of that station, right, the worst thing that anybody could do is boot out everybody. That's the worst move they ever done. but I can't say any more. But the reality factor is sometimes when we talk, it makes sense. Thank you very much, indeed.